Hello, my name is Shiraz Balolia. I'm the founder and CEO of Grizzly Industrial Inc. As you know, I tinker in woodworking and metalworking. They're my serious hobbies, actually. And I've built these 4 forever boxes for my 4 grandkids. I call them forever boxes because they're sturdily built. There's a lot of tricks and techniques in this video that hopefully you'll be able to use in one of your projects. So let's jump right in and start the build. So what we have here is a pallet of highly figured Bubinga that I've collected over the years. From these boards, I've selected 2 beautiful pieces that are well matched from the same tree and have the same color. As I had mentioned before, I want to build boxes that are forever boxes and are heavy duty enough so that they'll last for generations. Okay, so I've cut these pieces sequentially so that when the boxes are completed, they will have a continuous grain all around. They've been numbered 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and so on. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to joint the edges, just the one edge, so that I can use that as a guide to square off the edges, square off the ends, and also cut this to the final dimension. Now that I've jointed the edge of this board, I'm going to transfer the numbers onto the edge as I'm going to plane these boards down. What I've done is I've trimmed all these to 6.5 inches. The final dimension is going to be 6 inches. So what we've done is I've cut all these shorter pieces, which will be the sides of the boxes, to roughly 10.5 inches long, and I'm going to final cut them to 10 inches on this little jig here. So the next pieces have to be exactly 18 inches long. You can see this is a continuous grain here. So I'm going to cut this end off on this side. So there you have it. We've cut all the parts for the walls of the box. Okay, so we're at my CNC machine at home, and I've mounted these 2 jigs. One is for the side panel, the short one is for the side panel, and the big one is for the front panel. And I'm going to go ahead and mount this inside this very tight slot. And turn on the vacuum. That's all sucked down. So there we have it. That's the finished front part. I'll just sand off this a little bit, and now we'll go ahead and do the back part. So there's a double vacuum channel, so when I flip this over, it's still gonna hold. Works. So there you have it. So this little slot will have abalone strip inlays that I'll be inlaying into them. So what I've done is I've flipped the jigs over, and now we're going to set this on the jig and cut the pieces that will fit inside the Bubinga. These are locating pins, and I'm going to locate this just against the corner and then turn the vacuum jig on. And that sucks this board down. Now I can pull the pins out. And that's not going anywhere. Okay, so what we have here is a cowhide that's been stamped with a crocodile pattern. And I don't want to use this part of the crocodile pattern, but I'd rather just use this clean rectangular portion of the hide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this and then cut out my patterns from all these pieces. So there you have it. And I'll turn it around and use my templates, lay them over and blade around it. So this is going to get glued in here like so, and then that's going to fit in like so. Those will be mited together, and that's what the box is going to look like when it's finished. All right, so you saw me cut all the leather pieces out. I've got them neatly cut out. They all fit nicely in these parts. And I found that tight bond wood glue works great for bonding leather to wood. I'm going to apply a little bit of water around the edges so that, and maybe some on the inside as well, as it allows the glue more drying time. I'm not using gloves. I like to feel the glue and how I can get to all the corners. Lay that in there neatly. Fits really good. And I have these pieces cut out the same size as the leather, but before I do that, I'm just going to do a quick wipe, and we'll do a second wipe after I've clamped it down. So that's in place. I'm going to take some of these clamps. These are great gear clamps. You just go like that, and that's done. I love these clamps. Okay, some more cleanup. Now you want to be sure not put too much water, because what it'll do is will raise the grain, which you'll end up having to sand off later on. Put this guy down. Fits nicely into the cavity. This guy goes in. All right, so we have already glued in all the leather pieces into these inserts, And the next step is we're going to inlay these abalone strips into this little slot on all the parts. Now, the problem with this is when we use this cyanoacrylate glue, crazy glue, to glue these in, it will leave a stain on the wood when you go to finish it. So the trick is to put some sanding sealer on there to seal this wood so that the crazy glue does not penetrate through into the wood. So you have a nice even finish. The thing with abalone is it's extremely stiff. I mean, you cannot bend it, it'll break. So how do we make this curve? Well, I'm going to show you how I make that curve. My secret weapon is a spoon. So I'm going to use this spoon with my thumb in it, and we're going to press these parts into the slot. And as we come across, I'm going to break this into many pieces, and then the crazy glue will cover it up and you will never see the crack. So it goes in pretty easy on the straight patches. Here we go. We're going to make little cracks. There you go, we just made the corner. The thing about abalone is when you put the crazy glue on it, you can see all these little crazy things, pattern on it. Any cracks will get covered up. The more the cracks, the better the thing's gonna look. So you try to crack it as much as you can. We got the thing completely in. I mean, you can't tell where there's any cracks. So I'm going to go ahead and put the crazy glue in, which will lock this in place. You can see it's already starting to flow inside. So there you have it. We've got these glued in, and I have gone ahead and sanded this down to the finished size. This is all one level now. They look pretty good. These are the insides of the box. These are the outsides. You can see some sanding marks still on there. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a lock miter joint on the ends, so this will fit nicely together like this. But because this is such a short piece, I didn't want to risk any of, getting my hands in the way. So I'm using a coping sled for that. Next, I'm going to cut the mating short piece, which will fit like this. And so it has to be run vertically along the fence. I cannot use this jig, but I do have another jig that I'm going to use. This will fit like so for a perfect corner miter. I'm going to go ahead and cut these slots in on the long pieces for a blind divider that's going to come in from underneath and get locked in when the box gets put together, and they'll never see any joints, and it'll be foolproof and totally bulletproof. So what I have here is a very sharp end mill. This is an end mill that's high-speed steel, and it is a 1/4 inch bit that is used for soft metals, and of course I can use it for wood as well. I know this is like cheating. And I'll bring it down to 0 on my DRO here. Once I'm at 0, that's exactly the same depth as all the other pieces. 3,000s, 2,000s, 1,000, 0. A beautiful clean cut. The next thing I want to do is I want to cut little slots in here so that I can inlay these strips into the wood to cover up any defects or joint marks. And here we go. Once I start it, I can put it on a power feed and it'll go by itself. Kiss it with the sandpaper. And then you can see the fit on there. Look at that, just perfect fit. There's no gaps anywhere. Once again, kiss it with the sandpaper to remove the fuzzy parts. And check the fit. Absolutely incredible. By using the milling machine, what this allows me to do is make sure that when I put the box together, all the sides together, every line will join at the same place. It'll be perfect. So this strip will be a continuous all around. And of course, I'm going to make sure that the diamonds are in the right spot as I cut it to the miter on this end. What I have here is a precision miter cutter, miter trimmer it's called. I've got it set up. You see the corners are going to be at 45, so I want that miter to go at an angle. Now I could always just cut it straight and then file it, but it won't be as good and nice looking. So I'm going to precisely cut it on this miter trimmer. It'll be at the same angle and will disappear inside, so I don't have to do any touch-up at all. There's a lot of jigs out there that you can buy that will square your box up when you're gluing it together, but sometimes they get out of whack and they're not exactly square. So what I've done is I've made an unusual jig. I'm going to put these in like so. I've left this open, but it's on the same plane as the slot. And the reason for that is if there's any differences, because I'm making 4 of these boxes, if there's any differences between the boxes, then that's gonna be a non-issue. And I'm going to just do one of these numbers and spread it out. All right, I'm gonna put this one in place. This one's ready to, and then okay, so that's that. And then you can see that my brush went over on this, but the tape is going to get peeled off. So glue on all of them. This goes in. Use this 1,000-pound bar clamps. Look at that squeeze out. That's good. That's what you want to see. You can see everything is dripping down below past the corners, so nothing's dripping on the jig. Wipe this out, wipe this off. I'll have to sand it off later. So whatever you can wipe off now is good to do. You can see that everything is lined up, and I also cut this. When I cut these for the installation, I made sure to make it look like it was continuous. I guess I'm pretty close right there. Okay, so this is sticky back tape, sanding paper, 120 grit. It's a 3M paper that I'm applying here to this very flat granite plate. There's a lot of uses. You know, usually granite plates are used for precise measuring like this, with, you know, for machining, but in this case, I'm using it as a completely square and flat. So now I can put this up here and I can run it back and forth like this. And when I'm done, the bottom will be completely square. Right now, there's some glue on the bottom and it's sealing it off. This is a great way to make sure everything is square. So I got all four corners done. Let's check it out. There's no rock, it's dead flat. So I've completed building all the frame boxes. The next thing I'm going to do is build the base. And for the base, I did a test cut, and this is a shape I'm gonna go with. This is a classical bit, and you'll see me router it later on. Now for the base, what I'm using is some guitar billets I had sitting around. This is nice quilted maple. This is too wide. I'm going to cut this off and then I'm going to resaw it, joint it and resaw it. So let's go ahead and do that. So next I'm going to go ahead and join this. This is a jointer with a spiral cutter head, and the jointer with a spiral cutter head that does not have tear out on figured woods. This is a highly figured piece of quilted maple, and a normal straight bladed jointer would leave kind of holes in here. So what I want to do is figure out which side I want to be the center that's going to be joined. In this case, the figure is so incredible throughout the board that doesn't matter which is going to be the outside, because the outside is going to be the side that's going to get routed with that classical bit and will be the exposed side. So this one's got a little bit of a rough edge, and this one's pretty clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark it jointed. This is going to be the middle. And I'm going to make this mark, and I'll explain to you why I'm doing that. So I marked this billet as a center, and I'm now going to go ahead and resaw this in half. And that's when you'll see why this arrow is so important. Got the resaw fence on this G0636X bandsaw. I put a nice blade on it. You need a nice blade when you're going to resaw. So I put a good quality blade on it, and you'll see it cuts like butter. Now you will see the importance of this, because now you'll know how this is going to go together. It's so easy to mix it up, and you turn it around and you don't know where you're at, or you have the other side. So you have to match the triangle, and then that's how it's going to go together. So the final dimension on this is going to be 1 inch. So I built this jig about 15 years ago when I was building electric guitars as a hobby. And basically, when you have two pieces that you're going to join and you put clamp pressure on the ends, it wants to buckle. Basically, what's going to happen is I've got wax paper underneath so that the glue doesn't stick on the board. I'm going to glue this together. I'm going to lock it in place. And to prevent it from buckling up, I've got these wedges that I built that are going to go like that. I got 3 to each one, and I'm going to slam these down so that this pipe is going to keep the center from buckling up, and it'll be completely flat when it's dry. And so then I can go ahead and run it to the white belt sander and have a super nice finish. So I'm just going to add glue to these two pieces. So that's total coverage there. Put more. Okay, put this down. I want to make sure that none of the wax paper gets in between. See, it wants to lift already. See that? That's what I was talking about. When you try to clamp it down, it will try to lift up. So now I'm going to just lay this on top. And in go my equalizers, I call them. So now it's flat. It's not going anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this completely because I really want that joint to be super fantastic. So you saw me glue those up in my special gluing jig there. What I've gone ahead and done is I've trimmed them to length. This is the exact size I want. So this is the final size. I rounded off the corners on each end. And I decided on this profile here, this cold bit. I tested a couple and I like this a lot. And so that's what we're going to do for the base. And so when I am working with these highly figured maples, there is a possibility of tear out. So I don't want to do this in one pass. I have set the fence forward. It's got a bearing on it, but it won't touch the bearing. I've set the fence forward, so I'm going to take like half a cut right now, just to get that, so when I do the final cut, it doesn't have all that material to remove. So in order to do that, I actually have to turn it over this way because that's the flared out side on the bottom there. So gotta be careful, otherwise you'll route out the wrong side. Let's go ahead and inspect that. That took a little bit off, and I'll take the rest of it off when I do the second pass. Okay, so we got the first cut done. We'll set the fence back just a little bit more and do a second cut, and then I'll push the fence out of the way and run it against the bearing all around. So I'm doing it in 3 steps, just to be careful. You can see we're getting more of the profile shape here. This isn't the final, but compared to that's the first cut, this is the second cut. So it's a very, very clean cut because I'm doing it in steps. So we got 2 cuts done, 2 passes, and you can see there's tear out here, and that tear out will actually get removed on the final pass. So now I'm going to push this fence back behind the bearing. You can see there's the bearing there, so now I'm going to run it on the bearing, which means I'll get the full depth cut. At this point, when I run it across, you'll see this come out and run against the bearing. So I'm going to start here on the bearing and run it along like that and go around. That's the completed piece, rounded off. This will sand off, this comes right off. But these are slight burn marks, and it'll sand off when I do the final sanding. You can see it's gorgeous, turned out very nice. Taking our time with 3 passes was a good idea. We are going to go ahead and do the tops. I've already tested one sample top And what I did is I put this Roman OG bit on the router table here. So I've done this with the first, and I'm going to set this fence back, and we are going to cut it at full depth. I'm actually going to set it farther back and out of the way a little bit, because I still want the vacuum to work. And let's get it done. Now remember, this is the top. It actually goes like that. So we're going to do the bottom. The top is turned over, so it's opposite. You got to remember that, otherwise you'll mess up your piece. So that's it. That's the finished cut. I'm going to sand off the edges a little bit here, and we'll final sand it later on, but this gives you an idea. There's a little bit of a mark here, but we'll get that off while sanding. I think it looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and put these on top of those boxes and see what the lid looks like. So that's the final, this is what they're going to look like a little bit. Of course, they'll be much nicer when there's oil on it, but it gives you an idea of what these boxes will look like. And there'll be a couple of brass hinges on the inside, and I'm going to try and put a gas shock so when the lid closes, it doesn't crush the child's hand. Now what you'll see here is, if you remember, when I was putting those long sides together, I had milled those slots in there. And I had stopped them, and the reason I had done that is those were going to be the divider. So what I've done is I've cut these little pieces of Bubinga to the exact length, and I use this bullnose cutter to bullnose the 1/4 inch bullnose on there. That's pretty neat, and that's going to fit right in like so. Now you'll see it's a 1/4 inch short here, but this whole frame is going to get, I'm going to cut a slot that's this thick all around, 1/4 inch deep. So when this gets inlaid into the base, this will be flush to the base. So when it's done, it's going to look like this, and it's going to be a real trick because you want to know what's holding that centerpiece in, the divider in, and yet it's going to be super strong. So for the next part of the project, I'm here in my home shop, and we'll be doing some CNC work today. All right, so you saw me cut the profile on the top when I ran it through the router this way. What I'm going to do eventually is I'm going to cut an oval that's shallow, a little cavity in here, into which I'm going to have this thing stick out. So this will end up sticking out proud of the surface here, and it'll be on top looking like that. So this is a program to cut this oval with the Gianna letters. I'll take this blank, and that's what ended up. I have another program which I use for cutting the male parts of the inlay. It's called the Gianna's Abalone inlay, and that's going to go make the parts that will fit in here, and eventually the whole thing will end up looking like this. So this part is done. All I got to do is disconnect the vacuum so I can lift it off. And you can see that the cavity has been cut, it's been rounded over, and it's going to be perfect. Now all I got to do is take this and separate the letters and inlay them into the top. They look great. Now I'll cut this last program, which is basin inlay. All right, so it's time to put on the hinges, and what I've done with the top here is I've done a mock-up. I didn't want the kids, when they open the lid up, for the lid to fall down and slam on their fingers, so I put a soft touch. So basically, it's gonna open like that. And this is a mock-up, so I needed to figure out where exactly the screws went and all that. I marked the hinges, and I'm gonna have them 2 inches in from each end. This is what it'll look like when I've done the pocketing of the hinges. And as you can see, each one is numbered and it'll slide right in. And it's a nice tight fit, it doesn't fall off. The hinges are about 100 thousandths deep or thick. And so the pockets are gonna be about 97 thousandths, give or take. And I've marked the lines of where the 2 inches are gonna be. And the hinges are 2 inches wide. And so I'm going to cut the pocket 1.750, and that's because my end mill here that I'm using is already a 1/4 inch, so that makes up the 2 inches. And then from there, I'm going to adjust 1 or 2 thousandths or 5 thousandths, whatever is required for the hinge to fit in perfectly. So let's go ahead and fire this up, and I'll show you how I do this. 750. So what we're doing here is custom fitting each hinge. Make sure it fits. There you go, there it is. It's perfect. It's as good as it gets. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this pocket up. We're gonna go ahead to this side and do this other side. Gorgeous, perfect. Okay, so I'm using this Sorby corner chisel, and it cuts the corners out. I've already done this one. All you do is line it up and then just give it a slight tap. Everything looks good. Okay, you can use the same chisel. See how nice that corner got cut? Oh yeah, that should be a fit. Right, so I've made a lot of progress on these boxes, and I'll tell you what I've done so far and then what I'm going to do next. So, the boxes have got hinges on the lids. I've hollowed out the tops. I've cut out these ovals, and into the ovals will go this inlet. It's pretty tight. It'll of course get glued in. And I've even cut these slots in the bottom so that this thing fits perfectly inside. And this part, the center divider, is inset 1/4 inch so that it sits flush on the bottom. And once I'm done with that, I also cut out to lighten the box a little bit. Okay, so we're at the milling machine here, This is the top of the box. This is the last top. I'm cutting the slots for the hinges. I figured out exactly what I need to do for the hinges and how wide I need to go. I've got my center marked here and the starting point for each end, outside end of each hinge. And I've got to cut a ledge of 22 thousandths to allow for the back part of the hinge to set in, because the back part of the hinge protrudes a little bit from the flatness. Yes, that's where we stopped from the last one. So once I cut the corners, this will sit in all the way, but I just wanted to show you this little ledge be a little farther in because the corners have not been cut out yet. You can see that's a nice tight fit. I mean, it's a tight fit. It's just very nice. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut the second one on this side. And I'll start up on the edge and I'll come back in. This is the bottom part that goes into the box, and this is the part that's going to go into the hinge here. Like I said, it's going to be a tight fit at the back. I'm going to use this little corner chisel, and I'm going to notch those corners off. And it's very easy. It's soft wood, so that one's done. You can see the corner on those are gone. I'll do the big one now. This hinge 8. Let's check out the fit. Beautiful. That's a nice tight fit. So I'd already recessed this. I mounted each one of these on the box because they may be off by 10, 15 thousandths of edge to edge. I scribed a line showing what the overhang was in the front was going to be, because you can't set it too far in. Of course, the artist had to put his initials on it, SB, so I scribed that into the latches, polished them, and then this is going to get mounted in here, like that. And then this will be the edge, and that's going to be the lock. Yeah, this pocket was done on my CNC machine at home to make sure that it fit properly and I didn't, it looked good. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install shocks, or at least pre-install the shocks. These little shocks are rated for maximum 10 pounds. This is the smallest one you can get. So for that, what I've done is I've made a jig I figured out on this sample by mounting it on the here where I needed the placement to be. You can see there's a few extra holes in there. And I got the right placement so that everything works the way it's supposed to. And so I made a jig, and this is how I'm going to use the jig to install this. And I'll drop this in. I'll mark it with a pencil, and then using my I made a little stop here so that I don't drill through the wood. I'll go in and just drill these in. I've done one already, and those are the 3 holes. Then this will get mounted in here. And the very last thing I'll do is I'll install the shocks. Okay, these are the lids, and before I glue in the names, I need to finish up with everything I'm going to be doing on the inside. And so what I've done is I've cut out these, they're exactly the size of the slot in here. I did the slots to reduce the weight as well as to reduce the warping over time of this big slab. I'm using contact cement, and then when the contact cement is a little tacky, I'm going to drop these in place. And I've built these little spacers that fit in there to press them in, and then I can take some sort of weight and put it on there. So that's how this one's been done. And when it's completely dry, I'm going to peel all this off. Okay, the next step is where I'm going to glue and screw the box body onto the base. And the slots have been cut in the base, so it'll be countersunk into the base. I have drilled the pilot holes for the screws, and also where the oversized holes are so that the screw will go in, and I'll show that to you in a minute. And then I'm going to take these little plugs that I've cut on my lathe and plug these. These are press fit, so I'm going to have to hammer them in. So let's go ahead and do that. And I don't need too much glue for this, so I'm just going to put a quick bead all around. This is a divider, and that's gonna have to go in. You don't want to leave that out. So here we go. All right. And very quickly, we turn this over. Get a bunch of these screws in place. Next thing I'm going to do is, so this is one piece, it's not coming up, and you can see where there's just a slight bit of glue that squeezed out, even though I didn't put too much. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that first. Now's the time to remove any glue that's on here. Alrighty, anything outside? Yes, there is. Alright, next step, which is the fun part, is where I'm going to glue in the plugs. So, try to make 40 of these little buggers. They all press fit, 5 thousandths oversized, so I'm gonna. Alrighty, that one's done. So while this is drying, I'll take another one that's already dried and put it on the milling machine and mill the excess off. Alright, so once again, we're back at the mill. I love this mill. It just makes life easy. So these things are proud. Most people will use the chisel very carefully and then sand and do all that stuff. And we're going to do the sanding as well, but I'm going to remove the excess material. And some of these are taller than others because I just, eyeballed it when I was parting them off. And I'm going to go ahead and remove this. That's it. That's how easy it was to remove that. So, and this is about 2 or 3 thousandths or 4 thousandths proud, which I'm going to sand off the whole base in one shot. So I've taken this sticky back sandpaper, 3M sandpaper. I've got 180 grit here and I've got 320 here. So I'm going to switch to 320 now. And I'm going to sand 320. Yep. it's good enough for me to take to the sanding station now and finish it to 600 grit. We're back at the bench and we're going to install the feet now. This is, the bottom's completely sanded. It's like a several step process. You have to do something first. I couldn't do the feet first and then try to finish this because it wouldn't work. Now I'm gonna install these little plugs that I've made on the lathe. I'm gonna drop that in, press fit it, tap it in, and then the last step for the bottom, and I'll do that at the very end, is those little leather cutouts that'll act as a non-marring bottom for these boxes. I've cut these out already with a punch. We made this punch in-house. It's exactly the size of that, and it's very easy. And there it is. Beautiful, perfectly cut punch. And we're going to take this, I'm going to show you how that's going to end up. And this will get glued on top. So that's how, when I install this, that's how it's going to look. Let's put some glue in here. Make sure the grain on the plug is running a certain way. That's it. It's in. Nice press fit. It's not going to come out. Very nice. We're about to finish, put the final touch of the finishing on these tops and bodies. I use a bandmate tung oil finish. I'll put 3 or 4 coats of it and sand it between coats so that it rubs it in. So let's see what it does to this piece of wood, which is highly figured. Whoa. And you can see that the wood is sucking in that first layer of oil. And I'll keep rubbing it in until it's absorbed all it wants to absorb. This figure, if you're wondering, is called sausage quilt. You can see the sausage shapes of the quilt. There's another one over here. I think this one is called a swimming pool. And when I add oil to this, it looked like you're looking down inside a swimming pool, the glitter. Look at that. Oh. This is just incredible. Incredible. Out of this world figure. Now these are, remember, these were guitar billets that I used, so this is very special wood that I was saving. This is what I call the tiger maple. You see the tiger stripes? This is very unusual. And we're gonna put some more oil on this thing and it'll come to life. It's very rare that you get wood of this figure. All of this wood is not easy to come by. You can see the oil is getting sucked right in. Except for the ebony, the maple is really sucking in the oil. We're gonna do the box next. I've taped off the leather so that it doesn't touch. Alrighty, so I'm just gonna, oh yeah, look at that. You can see what this box is going to look like. Look at that figure. It's just an amazing figure. You can see the ebony corners I put in, covers up the miter joint from the lock miter, gives it a clean look. And when you see it at the end, when I attach the black handles, it'll kind of match everything else as well. You can see these abalone lines They don't look like much when on this side that has not been oiled, but once the oil hits it, it just sets it off. It's just like a very nice touch. Okay, here we are on the home stretch. I've already installed the hinges. I'm going to install the balance of the handles and the shock and the latch, and we should be all complete for the hardware. There we go. So I already screwed in the parts that hold the shock together. There, that's simple. So when I go like this, it comes up by itself. So for the latch, I have already done a cutout that this part fits into. That is going to go, you see it, for this part here I've cut out a notch in the front. For this part of the latch, I put a piece of brass together and sanded it perfect to make up this part where it sets in. So when I close this, I go ahead and line this up where I want it. Make sure everything is lined up. So I'm going to drill onto here as a start. At long last, I'm done with these wonderful boxes that I created as heirloom pieces for my 4 grandkids, something that I would cherish and use for the rest of their lives, something that I built sturdy so they can bang them around and not hurt them. It all started as an idea on paper, and this evolved into something like this. It was a challenging job, but I'm glad I did it, and I hope you enjoy the video, and I really appreciate the fact that you came along the journey with us. Thank you.